we can talk about it, but the old saying, talk is cheap, right? So it's all built on action. They're going to know if I didn't say a word in that locker room for 82 games in practice, my actions are going to say everything in how I deal with things and how I show them. And they're watching me too, how I handle situations. So the action part of it really is the most important. Talk's great. The interview's great, but do you follow through? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Or, care's real easy when it's going well. But when there's heat and it's not going well, are you still caring? Are you loving about them? Are you still interested in what their family's going on? And
that was Brad Larsen, head coach of the NHL's Columbus Blue Jackets, and you're listening to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolin.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello there, Jason Podolin here with Up My Hockey. Welcome back to the Up My Hockey Podcast for episode 84. Today we have on another head coach of the NHL, and that's Brad Larsen. Brad Larsen is a previous guest of the show a couple years ago, back when he was assistant coach for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Brad served 7 seasons as an assistant coach there. John Tortorella's contract has expired at the end of last season, and Columbus went searching for a new candidate, and they found the best option available from within. Exhaustive interview process that Brad talks about here in the interview, and they named Brad the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And this just completed his inaugural season as the team's bench boss, and we get into everything. About his first year, about how he went through the interview process, about his team and the growth with his team and expectations and managing those expectations and helping people get through the adversity and the hard times, what his foundation is as a coach, what he believes to be the way to get the most out of their players. Brad's an awesome dude. He's a real good human. He was somebody that I had the pleasure of knowing even back in the day. We played on the same Pee Wee team together in Vernon, where we won a provincial championship. We also played together for the World Junior team, won a gold medal together. Brad played twice for the World Junior team. The second time through, when I wasn't there, he was the captain of the World Junior team, won gold twice. So Brad and I go back a ways. It's awesome to follow his career arc, what he's doing, even his growth, not only as a coach and his growth as a player, but also just his growth as a human. He's always expanding, always trying to improve, and you'll hear his authenticity. You'll hear his transparency and his honestness throughout the entire interview. He puts people first. He has no problem sharing his opinion. He's very open to hearing others. He enjoys a good conversation, and he cares about the people around him. And he uses the words love, care, trust throughout. That was one of the things he said he used in his interview process. And when you put that at the forefront of your philosophy and your approach to handling elite, world-class athletes, with that hard edge to him, like there's nothing soft and cuddly about Brad. Brad's very, he's very straight. He commands a presence. That there's a way that he speaks, and there's a tone to his voice that this man is not a pushover, never has been, never will be, but he cares. He cares, and there's an honesty to that care, and I believe that mix that he has, his internal mix, is something that not everybody does have, and it takes a certain person to be able to lead an NHL team, and I believe the Columbus Blue Jackets picked a great person to do that. And you're going to get a gift of a conversation here, an hour and 50 minutes, I believe Brad took from his day and time away from his family, and I thank him for that. I know this time of the year he treasures drastically, his wife and his kids, who he doesn't get to see as much of during the year, and for him to spend an hour and 50 minutes downloading a season for you, my listeners, and my platform, I'm super grateful, and I hope you are too, because we get a little look inside, what it takes to do what he does, and for all of us here listening, who either players who want to be better, maybe coaches who want to be better, parents who want to do a better job. Like a lot of the tenets here that we're speaking about, the intangibles, the character, those words, love, care, trust. Like you can use these not only in any avenue, right? In sports, in your relationships, in your life, in your business. When there is a level, a human level of caring, of support, of wanting the best for that person with no other motivation, that goes a long way. So love what you have coming here. Enjoy the hour and 50 minutes with Brad. I know I sure did. And let's get to the conversation with the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Mr. Brad Larsen. All right, back to the podcast. Up My Hockey, Brad Larsen for round 2. This time as a head coach of a National Hockey League team. Thanks so much for coming back, Lars.
You bet.
To get things rolling. I mean, you've finished your first 82 games as the head bench boss. We had a little bit of chance to talk offline. How was that whole process of becoming a head coach of an NHL team and interviewing? I know you've done that before. Not sure how many times you've interviewed for a head coach job, but this time it was successful. What was that process like?
Well, it was intense. I mean, it's, it was, it's a unique situation because I had been in with the organization for so long too. I've been here 11 years and they're looking for change, number one. But, that was my dilemma. Is I worked for a guy who I deeply respected, in John Tortorella. I thought we did a tremendous job with our groups. But going into this interview process and what that looked like, it certainly wasn't going to, I believed in what we were doing. It wasn't like I had all these different ideas and thought we should change all this and all that. So the number one thing was just showing that I was, or letting them know that I was ready, that I was capable and ready to lead, and how I'd do it differently was just being me. And really, Torts is so unique in how he approaches things, and he's an incredible man, incredible coach. But there's one Torts, there really is. I mean, you probably put him in the Daryl Sutter category in how he coaches, but so I knew. It's how do you articulate that right in your interview and when you build your presentation and stuff. So that was kind of my focus going into that. And but yeah, I had 5 interviews. I've been here 11 years and had 5 interviews with these guys. And then in amongst that, some other teams had called, and I was at first they actually denied my an interview process with 2 teams. Which is a good, bad thing, right? I mean, if they like you, that's positive. If they're like, yeah, go ahead, then maybe they're not as interested. So it was kind of a catch-22. But as it went further along, they finally allowed access to one team, and so I had to build that presentation as well as continue on this. So it was a lot. It was for 2.5 weeks. It was intense and just getting things together in your ideas, because really they're totally different interviews. And I know this team so well, and I didn't know the other team so well. So it was very time consuming, let's put it that way. But yeah, I got the job and was thrilled. And there's a lot of good coaches, a lot of capable coaches, but just feel real blessed to get that opportunity and got through my first year. So it was great.
Yeah, no, congrats. Like you said, I mean, I know, and you've spoken very openly about your respect for Torts. Did you know necessarily why he got left go, and if there was a differentiating factor or something you didn't want to follow in his footsteps were, that it might have helped you in your own process, or did you not kind of, dig that deep?
Well, with him, he left on his own terms. They didn't let him go. It was his contract was up, and I think they had a real honest conversation. One thing about Torts, when you get to know him, is his self-assessment's great, and he knows where he's at with the team. He felt it was time to walk away. 6 years is a long time with one team. It really is. And the messaging and how hard you push these guys. And really we had built, and from the time he got here, we pushed and we built and grew this team to a very respectable level, very competitive, hard-nosed team. Obviously it was, 3 years ago when we beat Tampa, we kind of pushed the chips in the middle and added Duchesne and those guys. And we were a real good team there, very, very close to get through Boston, going in the second round. So, but then there was a shift. We lost some players, some guys left. And so you kind of push up and you're coming down. And the one thing that he saw is that this was going to be, of a retool, a rebuild, however you want to word it. But there was a shift in leadership. There was going to be a shift in youth. And was he ready to go through all that again with this group? And a lot of same guys. So it gets tricky for a head coach. Could he do it? Absolutely, he could do it. But will the message go stale? Are they able to go through it again? The guys that have been here, and he was. I think he was spot on. I think the timing was great for both of them. Not just because I got the job. There was, like I said, there was many capable guys, but he was very cognizant of where he was with this team, and it was time to walk away. So, as far as is when that got brought up in the interview, they saw how we worked. They saw how we did things. And I think with coaches and managers all the time, you're going to have philosophical differences, timing on some of your young guys. Are they ready? Are they not ready? Patience sounds great in July and August, but when we start getting in December and January, all of a sudden patience turns to urgency and they want to see guys. And so those are the things you're fighting all the time. And how hard do you push them? How much ice time do you give them? How much responsibility? Especially as a younger player, too much too soon can be real bad for these guys. It can really impact their careers, and you've got to be very careful how much you give them and if they're ready for it. And so I think those are some of the things that are highlighting and being a young team and where we're at and how we're building. It was, whether they were looking for new messaging or not, you'd have to ask them. I'm not going to speak for them, but I can tell you this. I knew how excited I was and passionate about this opportunity because I saw the shift. I saw the leadership change. I saw a lot of youth coming in, and that's a really neat time to come in as a coach. We all want to inherit the great teams, but I think there's so much value to being there at ground level. And I think, we're not bare. This isn't bare cupboards. And we have Zach Werenski, we got the Bjorkstrands, we got Nyquist, we got this, Elvis Merzlikins and Tarasov as a goalie tandem, and Korpisello coming back. You have Patrick Laine, you have Boone Jenner. So you start building around it. We're fortunate enough to draft a Cole Sillinger, who's been a tremendous player, 18 years old, come in, and he's going to be a real special player. Chinnikov coming in. So there's a lot to be excited about our group. And, this year coming up, we got a 6 and a 12 in the first round again, so, it's as a young coach coming in and getting that opportunity, I'm so excited because you get to grow with that group. And, we know there's there can be a shelf life with coaches, but I'm really hoping I get to see this through because I think this group's going to be special here in 2-3 years.
That's fantastic. Maybe just backtrack a little bit, just for people out there who probably don't know. And I mean, myself, I guess, is in that camp. When you're talking about preparing something as far as for an interview as a coach, what does that presentation look like? Like, what does that look like to prepare for an interview as an NHL head coach?
Well, it's two things for me. And what I tried to do is I wanted to give him a takeaway package of who I am, experiences, so that, so if someone doesn't know me as well, that they could grab it, they could look at it and understand, where I played, who I was, where I was a leader. One thing about being a coach, they don't care about your goals and assists. It's not about that. It's about, I think, things that you're trying to bring to light is, where were you captain? Were you winning? And I've been fortunate being several of those positions as captain and played for my country and won some things. So those are the things you kind of bring to light, and then just your experience. I mean, during that interview, I'm saying this is my 24th year of pro hockey coming up, which is crazy, and I was 44 at the time. So I've been longer in pro hockey than out of it. And so when they're looking at a young coach and going, well, is he inexperienced? I'm like, no, not at all. I've been in the game longer than I've, as far as my timeline and how long I've been on this earth here. I've been in pro hockey. That's what I've been doing. And I played it for 13 and I'd been coaching for 11. And one thing I was very fortunate is just being under Torts as far as how he mentored me and how much responsibility he gave me. And so all those things. So you're trying to present that, articulate that, show, but then you've got to give him a clear plan. How you're going to do it. And that's kind of what I focus on, not so much change, but how am I going to lead? What's going to be important to me? What's going to be important to our group? What are going to be with the standard and the foundation for our group? How are we going to build this? What's the 1, 3, 5 year plan for this group? Where do I see us right now? And that's the thing of knowing this group. I tapped into the analytics side a little bit and went into some things that are very important for me as far as type of player and really type of character, and I categorize that and rank them, and so you have a clear picture of analytics are great, but that's just one piece of the pie for me. I think there's so many other intangibles that you can't quantify with a number. You can't just put on and go, well, he's an 8, and it doesn't really show up. There's these things that intangibles in the dressing room, in the gym, and how they handle themselves in pressure situations and their teammates. So I wanted to give them a whole picture of the pie, not just one area. And so that's what you're kind of forming. And that's how I went about my presentation, and trying to show them the clear vision that I had, the plan that was going to be put in place, how I was going to utilize the resources of the ownership, the management, because they're putting a lot of money into certain areas. Well, how am I going to utilize that? How are we going to work together? I really wanted it to be collaborative. It's not my train here. It's everybody. We're all in this for the same reasons. And so just what that was going to look like in that collaborative kind of setting, and kind of put that visual for them, and really just show them my excitement and passion for the job. It was it's something that I truly love coaching. I do. I love doing it every day, and even in the bad days. And I can share many stories where it was frustrating or tough days, but those are the most rewarding days when you get through them, and when you put the work in and you see the growth in your group. And that's what coaching is. It's not when you're winning. Winning's easy. You just kind of get out of the way, let them do their thing. But it's when it gets hard, and how are you going to motivate? How are you going to tap into these guys? And you got 23 different personalities in different stages of the career. Some guys are in a contract year. Some guys are in the first year of an 8-year deal. Some guys are coming out of their entry level. There's all these different things that you have to take into account, and they're humans. They have families. They're thinking about this. So it's a unique job, because you'd think it would get mundane and very ho hum, but it's not. Every day, even when winning, there's so many different challenges, and it's like this puzzle piece that you're always trying to put together.
Right. That would be a question that I would add. I mean, if I was a general manager in this day and age, and if I was interviewing a coach, like, I would want to know what the plan was to navigate the room, because I think that there are different approaches depending on your personality, meaning the head coach's personality, right? Who he wants to incorporate to do that, whether it be an assistant coach type scenario, or if it's the open door policy in quotes. Did you have that as part of your presentation, or was there like kind of this is how I want to deal with the room and the guys?
Yeah, well, and I'll give you 3 words, and I said it several times in my conversation, my presentation with them, and it was love, care, and trust. And you got to love on these guys, and and when you were talking about hockey, that usually seems counterproductive, or it doesn't really fit in, but to love on these guys is to respect them and understand they're humans first, and how you're going to it's a relational thing, right? And how you're going to relate to them, because everybody's very different. They're in different stages of their life. There could be stuff going on in their life, and that's where it carries over to care. And you got to care about them, not just when they're playing well. And I truly believe in that. I don't think you can just care about somebody or do it when things are just going well. It's when it's really not going well is when you truly got to care about them and give them a plan and the solution, how you're going to get better, because that builds trust. And really, trust is built over time. It's not, you can't fast track it. You can't manufacture it. You're going to go through things. So the more opportunities I could show love on these guys, care about them, and build trust, I think that is really the building blocks and the foundation of where we want to be. And that's different than the standard and how hard we're going to work. And that's the hockey side of it. I think the human element gets lost in this at times. And I'm not in it to just win the race and try and get the Stanley Cup and be successful. I don't think you can fast track that. I think, especially the stage where we're at with our team, I truly believe that, to push these guys to a level where I think we need to push them, they got to trust me. And I'm a first-time head coach. They don't know me. They shouldn't trust me. And how do you build trust? Well, it's over time and going through things together. You talk about relationships, whether you've been married or long-term girlfriend, it takes time. Love is built over a long, long time. You don't fall in love in 2 days. That's lust. It's totally different. And to just show care about somebody, you have to go through situations. And 3 weeks into my job, we lost a goalie. A goalie died. I got a call at July 4th at 11:30 at night saying one of my goalies just died from a firework accident. And my heart just sank. It was an unbelievable experience, and just the pain and suffering. And I'm in my truck the next morning at 5 a.m. driving to Michigan and not sure what I'm getting into, but I knew I had to be there, and just to be there and try and help them. I don't know there's nothing you could say. You can't say enough things. It's just to be there because I wanted to be there, not because I'm a coach and it looks good on a resume. I wanted to be there with them and cry with them and hug on them and do what I could to help them. So that's something, that's a situation that just happened. That's one situation. But what I'm saying is these things are important to me. I believe they're foundational. I think anything worth having in life, it's going to take time, and it's going to, when you're building love, care, and trust, it takes time. There's a building process to that. So I really focused on those things. I think the stage of our group, that's exactly where we're at. They're young. We're the second youngest team in the league. We were the youngest team starting the year. And most of the pundits and experts had us finish in the bottom 3 or 5 in the league, and we were one game under 500. We certainly overachieved. Our group went through the wall right to the end of the final buzzer, which I was so proud to watch. But these guys truly cared about each other. You could see it, and building that family environment that's genuine, not manufactured, but genuine, where they feel comfortable coming to the rink. But that's when I truly believe you can push, because they know that your heart's in the right place. It's not about me. It's not about, I'm not trying to build a resume. What I'm trying to do is get the most out of them and make sure that, they all say they want to win, but winning, there's a sacrifice to winning. There's a massive commitment to winning, and it's my job to help direct them along with my staff. So, but you've got to have these other things in place first. It can't just point fingers and, I can yell at them and get them to do stuff, but that's going to run dry. Eventually you're going to hit a wall on that. So I think these guys did it collectively. I think they worked together on that. And you saw a group that truly enjoyed coming to the rink, putting in the work. And now, we're going to have to do it again and really up the ante this year.
Yeah. The one word that makes me cringe sometimes when, whoever's talking about players and they call them assets,
Mm-hmm.
And it is, the business side of it, they are, and their resources and these other things. But that's where I think that disconnect comes, as you're saying, like that they're humans, because some kid who was drafted in the first round, 18th overall, doesn't quite get it done in the first season and a half. He wants to get it done. He'd like to get it done. He's not a wasted asset or a wasted resource. And I think what you're talking about there, if that message is coming from the head coach that you do care, you want the best for him, which makes it be best for the team. You're allowed to ask different things of them, right? And you're building that trust that they're gonna follow through on that. And I think that's a awesome foundational piece to go from. And I just the human being in me and what I'm doing now. That's where I have my most success when the people I'm working with trust me that my intention is their best interest, right? Their greatest potential. And that's the goal. It's easier to get on board. I think it's obviously more difficult for you with dealing with 23 guys, like you said, on the same team. And maybe that's the segue Do you deem that your job to know these 23 guys that intimately, kind of on the day to day, that you're building that yourself, or is that kind of spread out throughout your coaching staff?
Yeah, well, two things. Just comment on what you just touched on here prior was, we can talk about it, but the old saying, "Talk is cheap," right? So it's all built on action. They're going to know if I didn't say a word in that locker room for 82 games in practice, my actions are going to say everything in how I deal with things and how I show them, and they're watching me too, how I handle situations. So the action part of it really is the most important. Talk's great, the interview's great, but do you follow through? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Or care is real easy when it's going well, but when there's heat and it's not going well, are you still caring? Are you loving about them? Are you still interested in what their family's going on? And so now to go to the next stage, yeah, I think that's a real important part of my job is to understand them, and it's not surface level stuff. I think it's not. I want to get to know them, but I want to understand them. Like what it's not about, and it's like you said. I hate someone was saying, how do you handle it? I'm like, I'm not there. I'm not handling them. I'm beside. I'm walking with them. I want to grow with them, and I need to understand them. I'm not handling them, and that sounds more like a real shallow way of dealing with an athlete. It's and learning how to understand them takes time too. And I had been with this group. It's not something that you can fast track again. You're going to go through. And that's what in this 82 games, they're going to be frustrated. I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to have expectations. I'm going to set the standard, what that looks like for them. And sometimes, a lot of times when I talk to the player, it's, if we have a conversation about how it should look like. And so, it's either, it comes really to two things here. Either I lower my standard of what I think you are, or you got to raise the bar. Right. And I can lower that standard. That's fine. And maybe I'm asking too much, but then understand that it's going to have consequences. It's probably going to be less ice time, less responsibility, or you got to get out of your comfort zone, raise your bar. Here's some solutions. Here's 3 or 4 things that you really need to tap into, and I think could help you. I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm here to help in any way, but I'm not a babysitter. I got a lot of things going on, and that doesn't mean I don't care. It just means, look, when I give you something, now you got to be a pro. You got to take it upon yourself to grow in those areas, and I will surely help you through it, along with my staff. But that's what being a pro is at this level. We're not 14 and 15 years old anymore. You're getting paid a lot of money to do something, and you have to do it at a high level. So, but I am going to give them a blueprint. I'm not just going to say, hey, well, figure it out on your own. That's part of my job, along with my staff, is to identify, maybe 2 or 3 things that could really help grow them. I'm not going to give them 10 because I think that's too much. I think a lot of guys, less is more, and most of the times it is, whether it's a lack of competitiveness, whether it's a skill set stuff along the wall work, whatever that is. If it's a lack of understanding of our structure, and there's things that we can do to help. If it's just as simple as edge work and skating, we have a skills guy. That's something we can work on, but it might be a combination of all those things. But so that's what you try to do, is you try to give them a little bit of a window of what it's going to look like, or a picture to help them. But then they got to take it on. And I watch very closely. Everybody's gangbusters the first week, but the problem is everybody wants instant results. And if it doesn't work in the first week or two, they're like, well, that's not working. Well, it's like working out in the summer. You don't work out hard for 2 weeks and then go, okay, well, I'm good. And then September, I'm gonna test great. You keep putting the work in every single day, and the harder you work, quite honestly, the gains get smaller. But those smaller gains are bigger than the gains you were making initially. But that I talk to a lot of our guys. That last 7% is the hardest 7% you're gonna have to work through. You know what I mean? It's like being really overweight and you lose 60 pounds in the first 3 months. But then to keep doing it, it gets harder and harder and harder. And that's how the teams separate themselves. And it's that last 7%. And, when you gain 2% of the last 7%, that's probably the biggest gains you've had, but it's going to be the hardest game, and you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to push, and you're going to have to really dig deep and start getting that last. And it's hard. It's hard. It's, you know, I evaluate all my players now. I look at them and going, is this the guy that I want? And, you know, is he going to be able to have 28 games in him when it counts the most? You know, are you able to go 4 rounds of 7-game series and be there standing at the end? Can I rely on you? Can I trust you? Are you going to push? And that's really all my assessment is now with all these guys.
That's awesome. That's a great, I love that being like the end conclusion on a guy, right? Like it's not the 82 games, but yeah, obviously you want to get to the playoffs, and is that guy going to be able to get you through, which is pretty cool. Just going to take a short break from the podcast here, which I know you're enjoying, just to talk about UpMyHockey.com and the growth of Up My Hockey in the past 2 years has been phenomenal. You know, this podcast has been a platform where I've been able to use my network within the game to have conversations that I think are important, ask the questions that I feel are relevant to what I do, which is help athletes get better, to help them realize their goals and dreams, to speak about these intangibles and teach some of these intangibles that are outside of the norm, meaning, you know, skating, edge work, shooting, that people always they obviously do drive a hockey player. You know, the physical skill sets are super important. But when we're talking about becoming elite, you know, that becoming the small portion of the funnel, wanting to play in a junior team, wanting to get drafted, like the percentage of players that get drafted, the percentage of players that go on to get a scholarship, the percentage of players that play pro or play in the NHL, this is hard to do. And the one thing that can allow you to be better and to increase your chances of being able to make the roster and find a spot on the team that you want to are the intangibles around mindset. That is something that still isn't talked about enough, and it is the biggest differentiator, I believe, in a very, very competitive environment. So the podcast allows me to talk about these things, yet UpMyHockey.com is where it lives, where the rubber meets the road. So if you like what you hear on this podcast, if you like some of these discussions, and if you want to use them either for your hockey team or use them for your player, or you are a player and you'd like to become more well-educated, figure out how this stuff can apply to you in your own personal game, that's where Up My Hockey comes in. I have a 4-week program called the Peak Potential Hockey Project that isn't even a year old. I can't even believe it. Seems like I launched it forever ago, but I actually launched it for the first time in August. I put it together all summer, didn't know how it was going to work, how it was going to fit, and the reviews and the testimonials have been off the charts. The teams have loved it that have used it. The individuals that have used it have loved it. Massive growth in the players that are taking it, and it's not even a year old yet. So big things coming up for Up My Hockey this year. I've been working with some bigger groups, some leagues even, that I know that the Peak Potential Hockey Project is going to be reaching more places than it has even this last year, which was super successful. So if you're interested in what the Peak Potential Hockey Project is, or in working with me either personally or in a group format, check out UpMyHockey.com. I'm going to have the next group session, the guided mission I call, become available at the beginning of August. That's where I'm going to run one in-house here. If you want to work with me privately, you have to reach out on the website to see if we're going to be a good fit or not, and if that will work. And you can also get the Peak Potential Project as a solo mission if you want to get started right now and not have me involved with the coaching sessions, and just take the material and take the lessons in the 4 weeks and the 4 different themes that are involved in that. By all means, you can go ahead and do that right now. So UpMyHockey.com for all things mindset with Jason Panolan. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you want to reach out, I love hearing about hockey players and what their goals and dreams are, and if I can help. Now let's get back to the podcast with Brad Larsen. Well, I liked how you talked about these guys as individuals and in different spaces in their careers, different aspects of their life. And one thing I love about the psychology of performance is the motivators. Like everyone gets motivated by different stuff, you know, and that can be superficial stuff like yelling or a praise, but it can also be like, does he really want to lead the league in points? Does he want to be the number one center? Does he like the accolades in the paper? Does he want to be a team guy and everyone respect him? Like, there's so many different things that motivate players. And I think, the more that I get involved in high performance and like understanding that, like you said, understanding the player, the individual is so critical, because if you don't know what makes them tick, like you're not going to be able to help them through that last 7%, as you talked about.
Exactly. And you you go through these things and you have arguments. You have, like I've always said, I'll always be honest. And that's my number one rule as a coach is I believe in total honesty and transparency, and there's no gray. And if you're not sure, then come in my office and find out, because there's nothing worse than not knowing. There's not, you may not agree, but that's okay. You just need to know where you stand with me. And I've had many disagreements with players, but I think it's healthy. I think but at least they know where they stand. And so the understanding each other and what motivates it, like I said, a lot of these guys, some of them are just purely motivated by money. And I get it. It's a huge industry and it's an analytic world. And usually numbers translate to big contracts, and people like buying cars and lifestyle. And so, who am I to say that that's wrong? I don't know, but they have to fit into the standard and the foundation of what we're going to be. And if you're purely money driven, it's only going to take you so far. I believe. I think that's an aspect that because you don't really get paid in playoffs. You get a share, which is when you're a high dollar guy, that share is a drop in the bucket. It's not even a 2-week paycheck for these guys. So if you're money driven, really at the end of 82 games, it's like, I'm good. I've got my money. Right. So I got to be really careful when I'm watching too. And you can feel it. If some guys are, that's what I'm saying. Is he going to be able to go 7 games times 4? Is that a guy? So, yeah, it's so intriguing to me, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. And you only have so many hours in a day, and you're trying it. But I do. You asked me, do I use my coaches? You're darn right, I do. I hire my coaches to trust them, and I have fantastic coaches who are 100% invested in the players. I think they see the vision, and they truly believe in the vision and what we want to do here. They all add something different, which is awesome, and they speak their mind, and I empower them in every opportunity I can, because I think that's so important for the players to see, and you got to see that we're in it together too. It's not just I've been a player and seen staffs that don't get along, and it's uncomfortable, but I'm very fortunate. I got a fantastic staff that's all in. So it was something I did early in the season was I gave every coach, they had 5 players that they had to talk to. They had a week where they go for lunch. They could have a 5-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation, whatever, but can't be done in their office, has to be anywhere else other than there. But just check in, where are they at? We might find something out. We might find out someone's struggling with one of their kids at home. Maybe they lost a family member. Maybe someone's dealing with a sickness. Maybe, as simple as they're having a fight. You just don't know. And a lot of times that'll explain a lot of things that's going on the ice. Maybe you saw there just the lack of focus isn't there, and you're like, what's going on? And so having these personal conversations, I think, are important because we do care. It's not because we're not genuine. We really want to know, and because it's going to help us as coaches. It helps me coach you better if I know, and then I can try and help them. Hey, look, I don't know what I can do, but if I can help you at home, what can we do? Do you need a psychologist? Do you need help? Do you need a marriage counselor? You just don't know. And nowadays, I think, you're supposed to just kind of shove it down and you don't say much about it. You're an athlete. You're not supposed to. But I think those days are going. I think they're out the door. And I think if you don't recognize that there is that human element first, how are you going to get to their best performance, right? And not in a selfish way. I want them to achieve their best performance for them, not for me. And I think because when they all do that as a team, that's my reward as a coach. It's so fun to watch a group go through the wall for each other, have success, and that's the reward. It's not about me and my staff. We're there to help them and give them some foundation and some structure, but to watch them execute it as a group, have fun in the process, but go through the pain and the work of it, that's the reward. And so, that's the journey that I just enjoy being on, and just to see how far we can get it.
You touched on it earlier about kind of expectations going in, and I think that for you, and maybe not with Yarko and the team there, but like it's never, I don't think, okay to plan to lose, right? Or think that it's going to be okay to lose. You said, like, some of the pundits are saying you're in the bottom three. I mean, I can't imagine you sitting there going, oh, well, that's going to be okay. I mean, what is that like before a season like this? Like you said, you started the youngest team in the league. Of course, expectations maybe can't be the playoffs. Maybe they are. Like, what did you think the bar could be for this group when you set out on your first season behind the bench?
Well, you don't really know, and not only were the youngest team, but understand that you had Seth Jones, who was assistant captain, you had Nick Foligno, who was a captain, you had Cam Atkinson, who was assistant captain, you had David Savard, who wasn't an A but pretty much was an A. They all left; they were all gone, right, through trade and different things, and so you had a whole shift in leadership. It wasn't just that we were young. Young's one thing, but now you got Boone Jenner as a new captain. You got we empowered Oliver Bjorkstrand with an A, and you got Werenski with an A, Nyquist with an A. So now you have a whole shift in leadership also. So, and you have a new staff. You have me taking over as a head coach. You have two new assistants, and the goalie coach was the same, skills coach was the same, but there was a big shift, like on the coaching side from our team side. So there was a lot of balls in the air. Let's put it that way, to juggle, and you don't know. I had a pretty good idea what we were going to look like, and we didn't go out and sign a bunch of defensemen. We didn't add any centermen, and so we were already a little bit young and deficient probably in some areas, but guys were getting an opportunity. And now what they were going to do with it, I didn't know. And, I looked at our group. I felt like we had youth and we had speed. That's something we could use to our advantage. But a lot of inexperience. You looked at our back end. We had one guy that had over 400 games. That was Werenski. And our next guy was 125 games. No, it was 201 games, but he was in the minors basically from the first month of the season. That was Scott Harrington. He never really played much with us. Next guy was 125, which was Gavrikov. And then everybody else was under 100 games. Our whole 8D core, which is incredible when you look at that. So you're going to have some lumps. You just are. And they're going to have to go through it together. And then even at the center position, you got Boone Jenner in your one hole. And, he's a tremendous competitor. But quite honestly, he's probably better suited for a second line winger or a third line center or winger, like when you're deep enough, if you're the Colorados or the Tampas of the world. And that's not a slight on Boone Jenner. That just means you have enough depth where you can put him in those situations. And you have Roslovic, who's basically going into his second year as centerman in the NHL. And then we have an 18-year-old centerman that's playing in Cole Sillinger. And then we had Crowley, who's a fourth line. So there's a lot of key positions that we were young or inexperienced. And so as far as expectations, we knew that there was going to be some trying times. And the biggest surprise, we started 12-6, which was great. But quite honestly, you knew that you could see it in the play. Like there's some things that our goalies were probably keeping us in or playing above. We had a lot of comeback wins, which is not a great recipe to be sustainable in the winning column. But they're all hyped up and ready to go, and they think it's going to continue. And as coaches, you kind of see that it's going to end at some point, and it hit us. We went to St. Louis on a back-to-back. They were rested, good period or good first period, and then they spanked us. Big, heavy team, experienced. And then 2 nights later, we were in Nashville, who were on a 6-game winning streak, big, heavy team, and they spanked us in their building. Then we went to Dallas, who was on a 7-game winning streak 2 nights later. Experienced 1 year removed from the Stanley Cup Finals. We lost by a goal, but we weren't really in that game. And then we ended up in Washington, another experienced team. You know what I mean? So we lose 4 straight on the road, and you could see these guys going, "What just happened?" And I'm going, the league's now, the season has started. We're 20 games in, and you're starting to play these big, heavy, experienced teams. We come home, we win the game we're probably supposed to win, and then we're right back in Toronto. A team that's been pushing not for playoffs, but for the cup, and we lose 5-4, but that was scoring 3 goals in the third period to get it to 5-4. Then we come back and we win a game against Anaheim where, we lose in overtime, we lose in overtime. We get a point out of that, but that's a good point. But then we're on the road again to Calgary and Edmonton and these big, heavy, experienced teams that's when I think our group, it was kind of a wow factor for them, where our youth showed up, where our likeness and lack of experience. And, so now this is when we really started to have to coach, and how are we going to help them through this? And we went through some ups and downs, and we broke a franchise record for goals for, but we also broke it for goals against in the wrong way. They scored too many goals. So that's going to be, if you want to win in this league, you got to keep it out of your net. It's great you score, but that's where that's where the inexperience. I think that's where it all started to show its warts in our season. So, I think your original question was, where did you see this or expectations? We weren't sure. I didn't believe we were a bottom 5 team or a bottom 3 team, but I knew playoffs was going to be a tall order with what we had in our group, especially the Eastern Conference. So it was a beast this year.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute beast. So, I couldn't have projected that you was going to take 100 points to get in the playoffs. That's insane. It's never been done. So your eighth seeded team's got 100 plus points, and you're the 8th seed. That's insane. So this is the first time I've seen in 20 some years that kind of separation between really the top 8 and the bottom 8. There was a line, and we were near the top of the bottom teams, but we weren't even close to the top 8. Yeah. And that's how big a gap there was this year. And is that going to continue? I don't know. Was it kind of an aberration this year? I'm not sure. But, the Islanders was one of those teams that got hit with COVID and all that stuff early on. So they were fighting them way back. But it was really us and them, and then everybody else below us,
Right.
And so a crazy year. But we ended up 1 game under 500, and that was, I'm telling you, that was you never want to be satisfied, and satisfied isn't the word, but I saw growth, and that's what we needed to see. And when we addressed this group, especially my leadership group, it was about 18 or 20 games left, and playoffs were slipping. And, I challenged them to lead it in practice, because I wasn't pulling back in practice on what we were doing and all that. So, and they led it. They played right to the final buzzer. And, that's what we needed to do. I am never going to coach to lose. I don't believe in that. I think you're playing a very dangerous game when you start coaching to lose and you're trying to lose, or I don't believe in that theory. I don't think it works. I don't think you get rewarded properly. And I think you're putting the habits that you're creating with your team will linger all the way through for a long time. And so, to me, it's all about building the foundation of winning, and, we'll let the score take care of itself, but we're going to play the right way. I told them very clearly how we win and how we lose are very important right now. And I'm watching closely the guys that are still pushing, and our guys they pushed right to the end.
Yeah, that's an impressive. It was an impressive year. I mean, I was definitely rooting for you guys. The start that you had, like you said, and then you just kept clawing, right? And you kept sticking around. And it was a tribute, especially for the like you said, all the change and all the upheaval that was happening there. You guys did fantastic. What when you look at the big analytics, I'm not sure if you're, like you mentioned earlier, you're an intangible guy, and I know you to be an intangible guy, but you also said you also dug into the analytics a little bit. Like, as far as the macro analytics, the goals for, the goal against, the PK, the PP, those types of things, like, where do you think you need to improve the most next year? Or is there a direction from that standpoint? Do you look at it in that way as a coach?
Yeah, like right away, we got to keep the puck out of our net more. We got to get, keep away the high danger areas. I think, it always goes back to, is it the lack of talent or structure, right? Or is it a combination of both? And, that's what you fight as a coach a little bit. Is it the right structure, wrong team? Was there a right structure for this team? We did a lot of good things. Like, for me to keep the puck out of net, it's a very layered question. It's not just, well, you got to be better in your D zone. For me, we got to be heavier in the O zone. We're too light this year. We didn't spend nearly enough time in the O zone. And what I learned from those years, we made playoffs 4 years in a row. There's very, very few nights where we didn't spend more time in their zone than the opponent in ours. So if you're in their zone, they can't attack you, right? So to me, I'm looking at it at the other end first. We got to get heavier. We got to possess the puck more. We got to make sure that we're heavier and making sure we're spending more time in there. And that it goes from everything, to me, is connected from how you forecheck to how you reload, to how you track, to how you arrive, to how you exit. It's all one. And so when you do it in 5-man units, when you do it with a heaviness and a competitiveness and a tenacity and a relentlessness, then you have something. And it requires all 5 guys being on board. So that's an area to me, we got to get bigger. I think we got to get stronger, and I think we're going to try and address some of those areas too. So for me to be a better defending team, we've got to be a better forechecking and OZP time team. We got to track better, we got to ride better, and then there's some things in the D zone we're going to look at and maybe make some changes. We're going to probably talk at the draft. I have some ideas, but us as a staff will come up with that together, and we'll see what our team looks like too. There's going to probably be some changes. Like no team rarely comes back the exact same, right? So there's some areas we're going to try and improve, whether that's through agency or through trade. We have some high picks, and do you move some of those picks to get a player? Again, these are all things for Yarmo and his staff and management staff to figure out what they want to do. But we'll have a better idea probably around mid-July to August 1 what our team's going to look like. Right. And then we can kind of game plan a little bit more. But the big picture is it's got to be, there was one team that was in the red, and I think that was Dallas. And every other team, their differential was a plus. So you want to be a playoff team, you have to be in the plus side. You have to be. That's just, I think Dallas was the aberration there a little bit. Yep. They snuck in. But that's got to be a focal point. But then again, we got to give them the plan. You can't just be we got to be better in our D zone, because I don't think it's just as simple as be better in your D zone. I think there's all these areas that you have to be better in also that make you a better defending team.
Yeah, well, you mentioned just the age of your defensemen. There has to be growth there from the next year. You would think, just from the experience side of it, right? Figuring the league out, and these guys are going to be older and wiser because of it. But you mentioned the word heavy again and again and again. Now, I think I know what you mean by that. I'm not sure if the listeners do or not. Like, does that mean actually physically playing a different way, or do you actually want bigger players, or both?
Well, to me, I think everybody will want the biggest, strongest, fastest player you can get, highest skilled, right? I think in a perfect world. Now, the one thing that I will argue with a lot of people is competitiveness can come in much different packages. It doesn't have to be, a really good example. We signed this Nick Blankenberg from Michigan. Didn't know much about him. He's 5 foot. He says he's 5'9", but that could be debatable. About 165 pounds he came in, and I didn't know much about him. I knew he was a competitive kid from what I had heard, but he came in, and I'll say this with total honesty, he played 8 of the last 9 games or 10 games, and he was one of the most competitive players I've seen all year. His defending details are outstanding. His awareness on the ice. You could have actually built how to defend a video just on this kid. Now, he's a rookie. He's not 18 years old. Obviously, he's a 4-year player at Michigan. Was the captain. You got to understand, this kid was the captain of the team where they had 4 guys out of the top 5 first-round picks. So it says something about him right away. But his story is incredible, how he got there. And he started as forward. His team was, in midget, and then they got all banged up. And coach asked who wants to play defense. He stuck his hand up, said, "I will." And he's the smallest guy on the team, and ended up being a good defenseman. They recruited him when he went and played junior A hockey in Alberta. Somebody from Michigan came and recruited him, said, "Hey, look, I don't know if you'll make the team." Ends up making the team, doesn't get a scholarship, plays every game but one. The next year doesn't get a scholarship again because they got all used up, pays his own way again. By year 3, he's assistant captain. By year 4, he's the captain of the team. So I look at this guy, and he's 5'8", 165 pounds, and I can't wait to coach this kid because of his intangibles, how hard he plays, how his competitiveness. So when you ask the word what's heaviness, I think we all want to be 6'3", 6'4", 210, fly, high skill, but it's not going to happen. But to me, that heaviness really should be coupled with competitive, and really the third thing on that is that hockey acumen, the hockey IQ, how important that is. It's you can skate a million miles up and down the ice, but if you don't have any hockey sense, it really doesn't serve you well. It looks great in the skills contest or practice, but in a game it doesn't serve you as well. So the thing about that competitiveness and heaviness is, we could be a perfect structured team, but if you're not competitive enough at the puck, it really doesn't matter. You arrive on time, but if they're blowing through you and blowing through coverage all the time, it doesn't matter. So those are the things that are important to me, and I think our management, I think our staff, creating those competitive environments in practice and talking about it, showing it on video, and making sure that they understand what that looks like. And it's, do I want guys flying around hammering guys? If the opportunity is there to take a hit, you give it, because I think they're expecting it. Don't let them down, but don't chase it. I think you could chase the game, and that's foolish. But I want to know that when teams play us, that we're just relentless. We're at the puck. We just don't quit. And I think you can will yourself to some wins. And I think there's it is a game of attrition. I think you're wearing teams down, and I think that serves you well in playoffs. If and when we get there, that we'll be very prepared for that. And that's our jobs as coaches, to make sure that in this early stage that setting that standard, what that's looked like, what that's going to look like. As far as the size of the team, love big, but I'll take competitive over big any day, as long as we got the right players. And I think it's got to be a mix, and I think that's what we're looking for.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how familiar you are with the Oilers. I mean, I know you're so wrapped up in your own team, but the guy that I use as example, like all the time with the people I work with, is Yamamoto. Like, small guy, and he, like, to me, he's just so relentless on the puck. Like, to your word, competitive. And he's not blowing up people. He's not big enough to blow up people, but like, he second and third effort around the puck, like how he causes turnovers and his pursuit of the puck is like, that's how I show the younger players or the smaller players I work with. I'm like, this is what competitive means for somebody in your package. Like the facility that you have, you can't be, a Patrick Maroon. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to go in there and try and blow people up, but you definitely can be ultra competitive on the puck, with your second and third effort. And I would love to watch the player you're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with his name, but it sounds like he's kind of a little bit of a clone of Yamamoto. And I love watching players like that, because they're inspiring to everybody else on the team too. Well,
especially as a D-man, it's a whole nother game back there. It's one thing to be a winger. It's another thing to be the last line of defense, and you're boxing out guys and you're picking up sticks. Like, he has an incredible gift. And this is what I said to him. I said it to the media. He didn't show up here to the NHL and go, oh man, I'm small. He's been small his whole life. This isn't news to him. So he's had to play as an undersized guy. Now you're doing it at the highest level. So, everything goes up. It's quicker, it's faster, and stronger. It's all those things we talk about. But when you have the will, and I'll say this, his awareness on the ice is incredible. The information he takes in a D zone on his arrival is about as good as I've seen. And that's coming in 8 games. And, some guys come in and have success early, and I always call that, the honeymoon phase. Everybody's got adrenaline. They're all excited and they're all amped up. But, the reality of the NHL sets in at some point, because it's a hard league. But, usually they're doing it with max effort. When I watch the way he plays, yes, his effort competitive is outstanding. But when you watch his details and the information, and I think as an undersized guy, if you're not taking information, you're going to get killed. You really are. You're going to get hurt. And I think that's his biggest asset is his awareness of what's going on, the information he takes, and then the next play that he makes when he gets the decision he makes when he gets the puck is spot on, because and this is what I'm saying. I could teach defensemen, go, watch what he's doing. He knows what's behind him. He knows what's in front of him. He knows where the puck's going to go before he even gets it, if he's going to get the puck. And that's how you play fast, right? That's what a fast player does. He already has 2 or 3 plays in his mind, and then you add his competitiveness at the puck. It's he's like I said, you don't know anything about him. He showed up at the end of the year. We got him with Kent Johnson, who was a 5th overall pick. So, he ended up signing with us, and so again, he kind of gets overshadowed, but there's something there, and another good example is that Gallagher from Montreal. You watch how he plays. You can't get him out of the blue paint. He's like a gnat, and but competitive, ultra competitive, and at the puck, he's not the prettiest skater. He's not polished. Boone Jenner's a great guy. He's bigger. He's 6'2". He's like 205, but he scored 23 goals, and I bet you 21 of them are from the blue paint or in. It's just that he's willing to go to the hard areas. He's willing to get his nose dirty. He understands where the goals are going to be scored. He's not going to score them like Patrick Laine. He's not going to score them like Bjorkstrand. He's going to score them like Boone Jenner. And the guys that have a willingness to get in there, and the second, third, fourth efforts and just shovel it in. That goal counts just as much getting it over the line as it does hitting the back of the net, and the guys who do it, it's hard though. It's hard. It's not easy. And that's why not everybody does it, because there's a certain will that you have to pull out of yourself to do it. And you got to practice it and you got to be relentless at it. And the guys that do it, they have an opportunity to have really an incredible success. But the guys that don't, oftentimes they're excuse makers or guys that they're not willing to go to that area. And again, that's when I go back to saying, if we can pull something out of them and build that trust to say, hey, there's something here for you. You can do it. Here's the roadmap. Here's the compass. I'll set the compass for you, but you're going to have to get on that road and go. And another great story, I know I'm getting long-winded here, is Justin Danforth. He's a guy that he came to us as a 28-year-old rookie. I don't know if you know anything about him, but he's 5'8". Played in the East Coast, bumped around the American League, didn't work out, went over to Europe, played in Germany, I believe, and some, ended up in, I think, Switzerland and Russia. He was one of the top scorers in Russia. Came to us, finally got a 1-year deal, NHL one way at 28 years old. Came to us, great skater, a little bit lost in camp for me. I don't think he had a great camp. And, he's trying to fit in, see where I had to send him to the minors on a one-way. He didn't do enough in camp. He handled it unbelievably. I told him, I don't think you're going to be a center at this level. You're going to have to play wing. He's like, all right, I'm going to go down. He's like, can I play wing down there? I said, absolutely. I'll make sure that happens. He went down there, was the best player down there for 10, 15, 20 games, gets recalled, doesn't play, goes back down, gets recalled again, and starts getting the lineup. And he had to change his game. He went from scoring goals and assists and near the top of the KHL to now I'm got him on a fourth or third line role, being an energy guy, being physical, killing some penalties here and there. And he did it. And he's an incredible story when you watch it. Now he earned himself a 2-year deal. And I told him, I said, you've got to get in the lineup every day to expand your role. I said, he's trying to get ahead of Patrick Laine and Jake Voracek, who's got 1,000 games and 900 points, and Bjorkstrand has scored 25 or 30 goals in this league, and Gus Nyquist, who's played on high caliber teams. And so he said, so you're going to have to change. And he did. He did it at 28 years old. He did it. He didn't do it as a 16 or at a 21-year-old kid. At 28 years old, he reshaped this. And by the end of the year, he was one of my most important players. The energy he brought, his physicality, all things that he was willing to get outside his comfort zone. And now he's invaluable to me. Now I know we can move up and down lineup. Now I get to see him every day in the game. And, I think he ended up with 9 or 10 goals at the end of the year. I think he had 1 in the first half. But he's playing every day now because he was willing to change. He was willing to get to an area that a lot of guys won't. They won't do it. And he did it. And so it was really neat to see this guy at that age. And I'm going to use this guy as an example for the rest of my year or life as a coach, because it's never too late. If you have the will, at least there's no regrets, right? At least there's no excuses. At least you gave it everything you got. If it doesn't work, you tried. And he tried and he succeeded. And he got himself a 2-year deal on top of the 1 year he had last year.
Do you feel that there's passion needs to be involved in that? I mean, you said will, you definitely have to want to, but I've found in working with players, there's this, some people just like playing hockey a certain way. I mean, that's where their passion is, and whatever that means for whoever it is. I don't need to get into examples, but you know what I'm talking about. They don't have fun in the corner. That's why they don't go in there. You know what I mean? That's never been fun for them. They want to score from distance, or they want to do whatever. You kind of have to love all aspects of the game in order to change it at 28 too, right? Not only have the will, but you have to just enjoy it. Right, showing up and being at the rink and everything else that's involved with the game in order to do that. Don't you agree?
Well, yeah, and I say this: the NHL is not for everybody. It's not. There's nothing wrong with going, look, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to play in Switzerland and have a great career. That's awesome, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means, look, if you want to play a certain way, and you can't do it at the NHL. Go over there. You can make great money, and it doesn't mean you failed. So it really comes down to what do you want to do, and to be an NHL player, it's going to take sacrifice. There's only so many Patrick Laine's and so many Connor McDavids. They're the 1%ers. So quite honestly, if you're trying to make the league being a 40 goal scorer, good luck. I'm telling you, because it's hard. if you want to make it as a guy that's a detailed guy, good in the faceoff circle, block some shots, penalty kill, start it that way, you got a way better chance. I'll tell you that right now. And there's way more roles for that than there is the guy being on the right wing scoring 40. So think of it that way. Where's my opportunity going to lie? If I come to camp thinking I'm going to be a 30, 40 goal scorer, I got to beat out Laine or Bjorkstrand, or I got to go to Edmonton and beat out Connor McDavid and Hyman and Draisaitl, or I got to go. It's a tall order, right? But if I say, look, I'm going to will expand, and here's a great example. I had, God rest his soul, Brad McCrimmon, who passed away in that flight in Russia. I had him as a coach in Atlanta, and all the time he'd be like, Lars, what do you add into your toolbox today? And he was spot on. Like you can't stop adding. If you're, I played left wing, right wing, and center in the NHL, all of it. They asked me to play center. I remember, I will never forget the day Bob Hartley said, you play center before? I said, oh yeah, lots. I hadn't played center since I was probably 12 years old, but I certainly wasn't going to say no because it was an opportunity to play. I said, yeah, I play lots of center. It lied right through my teeth. And then I started studying, and then I started working on faceoffs. But guess what? Now it's got me on the penalty kill. It's got me taking faceoffs because I can win faceoffs on the penalty kill. It was getting me 3 or 4 minutes more ice time. And now I'm a guy, I can be a utility guy. You can use me in any situation, center, right, or left. But you got to go just do it. You got to embrace it, right? And I had a kid in the American League. We were talking about some roles and different things, and his big saying was, "You bloom where you're planted," right? You just wherever they put you, be the best version of that. And that always hung with me. I'm like, what a great idea! Like instead of complaining, going, "I should be this, it should be that," just do what do they ask me? Just do it. Do it the best of your ability. And so quite honestly, the guys that are, you got to really want to know what you want. You need to know what you want. If you want to be in the NHL, well, you're going to probably have to expand your game, because by the time you get to the NHL and you're entering that locker room and you're out of camp, everybody was the best where they were at. Everybody. He was either the defenseman of the year. He was either defenseman of the year in Europe. He was the top scorer and the winger in Russia. He was the best centerman in college. He was in junior. He made first All-Star team and played on Team Canada. These guys are here because they were the best at what they did. So it is that pyramid effect. So now, how do you add value to this team? When I played in Colorado and I looked at the team, there was, at that time there were 6 Hall of Famers, and this team was like loaded to win. It wasn't playoffs. It was Stanley Cup or bust. You have Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg and Ray Bourque and Rob Blake and Patrick Waugh. Half your listeners probably know who these guys are, but what I'm saying is these guys were good Hall of Fame players. And I'm going, where do I fit in? How am I going to do it? Yeah, junior, I was good. 80 points and 35 goals, and Team Canada, a couple gold medals, captain of one team. Yeah, it looks great in resume, but everybody was, in some aspects. So I had to change. I had to add some grit, some fighting, some, being a rat, and not stuff that I wanted to do, but I could be a 20 goal scorer in the American League, or I got an opportunity to play 6 minutes a night in the NHL and be an NHL player. And there was guys in my team in the American League, really good players, that didn't want to do it. And I'm like, I'll do it. I'll try. At least I got no regrets. If I didn't work out, it wasn't going to be because I didn't try to do it. And so that was kind of my ace in the hole. I was able to work myself into a role that I wasn't a great fighter. I didn't know what to do, but I had to learn. I fought 6 or 8 times my first year, and he challenged me 12 games into the year. Are you going to hit anybody? I fought 3 games in a row. I'm like, all right. I'll add that. Why not? You lose. But there had to be a willingness, right? And what was my goal? My goal was to play in the NHL. So I saw a path that I could get on that might get me there, and it did. It ultimately got me there, and had a little over 300 games. So it was great.
Going to take another short break here just to talk about the Facebook community that has grown to over 1,500 families from across North America. I know not everybody is on Facebook, but it is a great group that I'm really proud of. Started that over 3 years ago. It is a free resource for all things hockey, for parents who want to do a better job navigating the space. is primarily what it's for. You know, whether you're squirt aged or U11 aged or all the way up to junior, the journey's hard. The journey's difficult, especially when you got an athlete that is super competitive and wants big things. The parental guidance and structure matter. So we talk about mindset there. We talk about things, parenting and how to help. And it's not just me you're hearing from. It's also the community. You know, there's lots of coaches in the group. There's lots of parents that are at a different level than you are at. So it's a safe place. It's a supportive place. It's a positive place. It's also where you get to hear from me and any of my offers or new services that I'm releasing. You're the first to hear of it in there. So if that sounds interesting to you, by all means, come join us at the Up My Hockey Parent Group on Facebook. If you're not a Facebooker, I also have developed a YouTube channel that I've been growing. So most of the things that I'm producing here in studio, I will release, whether it's lessons from the pro or whether it's something NHL based. I've been putting on my YouTube channel, which is Up My Hockey. And I'm also in the social media aspect of Instagram. So that's under my personal name, at Jason Podolin, where you get a little more in-depth and personal into what I do on a day-to-day basis with my stories. And I try to keep up to date with some of the mindset topics that I'm also talking about. So definitely 3 places to follow me. Up My Hockey Parent Group on Facebook is a great spot, a free group, like I said, that I highly encourage people to get involved in. There's also the YouTube channel for you YouTubers out there. Please subscribe, upmyhockey.com, as I'm trying to actively grow that channel. And then there's also Instagram at Jason Podolin. So look forward to following you there and interacting with you guys on social media. I love the back and forth and hearing from you and answering your questions. And if I can be helpful in any 3 of those channels, by all means, please reach out and let me know. Now let's get back to the interview with the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Mr. Brad Larsen. That might be a great segue to Cole Sillinger. I know you talked about him earlier and how impressed you were with this season, youngest player in the NHL. I read an article that you were talking about him. I don't know when it was printed. It was after the season was over, but just speaking that you didn't necessarily expect him to make the team, and there was almost points in the season where you told him, I wrote it down, I need you to go away, and he just wouldn't. You know, how does someone like that, who gets drafted after Johnston? I know he was in college at the time, but I mean, he makes the team as a center as 18 years old. Like, what did he have to do in order to make that a reality? Like, what did he do to impress you enough to say, I can't get rid of this guy?
Man, this guy's going to be a real special player, and he's a little bit of a throwback. I think he's a little bit of a unicorn in how he thinks the game and how he approaches the game. I look for every opportunity to get rid of him in camp. And in early, you get that 10-game window, right? Of, does it turn into a contract? You send him back to junior. He was a little bit more unique because we could have sent him to the American League too, because he had played in the USHL because the major junior had shut down. So he played in the USHL. So if you play in that league, you can turn pro and then play. You can send you to the minors, where you're a junior age player. Major junior, you either got to go back to junior or it's NHL, right? So we had a little bit more leeway with him and some discretion if we wanted to send him there. But I'm telling you, this kid, he willed himself to the team. He did, and he obviously he came in great shape. But what he hangs his hat on is his competitiveness, his work ethic. Those are the 2 things that I remember early on. It's game 2 or game 3 of the season in Detroit. He's having a terrible game. By the 3rd period, I didn't play him a shift in the 3rd. I just couldn't, so the next day I call him into my office and we're talking. I said, well, give me your thoughts on last game. What do you think? And he says, well, coach, he said, he goes, man, I had a bad game. He goes, I would have done exactly what you did. I didn't deserve to play in the 3rd period. And that's not the answer I was looking for. And sometimes you see these kids and it's not genuine, or they're telling you what you want to hear. But his self-assessment is incredible. He knows when he's good. He's challenged me before, later in the season, where he's like, I thought I'm playing pretty good. Why didn't I play more? And I'm like, I thought you were too, but I'm using some guys in different situations because of experience and what they're doing. But he knows where he's at. And his intangibles, what he relies on is his foundation. Because I always ask the player, what's your foundation? What things are good, things are bad. What is your foundation as a player? What do you always come back to? because ultimately you're going to have ups and downs in the season. And some things it's easy. Sometimes it's going rough. But who are you, Cole Sillinger? What are you going to hang your hat on every night? And he wants to be a 200-foot player. He wants to be competitive. He wants to be the hardest working guy on the ice. But then I'll go back to, the action part of it, right? So it's great. Says all the right things. And I've had plenty of those. But when you watch Cole and you watch how he carries himself and you watch him in the gym, and, I asked the strength coach, how is he? He goes, he's an animal in the gym. And then he's in practice. He works his tail off in practice, competitive in practice. You watch him in the game, and he's relentless. He everything he does it's all out effort, and he's got the skill set. He's got it all there. I think he's going to be a 30-30 guy. I think he's going to be 30 goals. 30, I think he's got potential of being better than that. But because he's got the right mindset. So I'm terrified to keep an 18-year-old on my team because I know what it can do to a guy, and but his maturity for an 18-year-old, the respect that he got from the room that I saw by Christmas, most guys don't get in 3 or 4 years. He has got a maturity to his game as a player, but as a person, as an individual, that, his parents have done a tremendous job with him, the Sillingers, and obviously his dad had a great career, but you can tell that he's a driven player, and not just goals and assists. He's driven to be. He wants to get his jersey in the rafters. He wants to be a guy that's relied upon, and he understands that there's work ahead, and he's not afraid of the work. And so he willed himself on the team. He got himself. I said it to the media many times. I tried to get rid of him. I said it right to his face. I'm trying to get rid of you. This is before camp's over. I said, I'm trying to get you out of here. And I said, but you're playing too well. I said, but if I see a chance, I'm going to get rid of you. And again, it was for the right reasons. I didn't want him to fail, but man, he ended up 16 goals, 30 some points as an 18-year-old kid in the NHL. That's a heck of a year. And there's something to be real excited about by him. But again, it comes back to his foundation. It's not because he's got a great shot or his great skill set. That's part of the package. That's part of the pie, as I'd say. But what makes his engine is what makes him go, and his mindset of how he's going to approach each game. And I'll share this with you. Even at the end of the year, we had our exit meeting, and I said, I said, very dangerous to have 16 goals and 30 points your first year, because everyone thinks the next year is going to be 20 goals for sure and 50 points. Now I know the league. Well, I said, what's your mindset coming into next year? I said, because it can go south real quick if you don't have the right mindset. And he goes, Coach, I've thought about this for probably 2 weeks now. And he said, I'm coming in knowing that I got to fight for a spot on this team. I'm not on the team yet. And he means it. He's coming in going, I got to prove myself again and to get on the team. And I said, well, I like your chances if you come in pretty good shape. You know what I mean? But his mind is right. And so he's a neat kid. I'm really excited. I'm really privileged to coach a kid like this. I don't think they make them like this anymore. There's not many that I see, but he's a true leader, and I'm saying that as he's 18, turning 19. I think he's a true leader, and he's got an opportunity to do something real special with our team.
That's fantastic. Let's rewind just to that one spot, because so you're now trying to find a way not to have an 18-year-old kid there, just because the pitfalls and how it goes. The league's tough, right? And sometimes people get too much too soon. So I hear what you're saying there. But this game 3 now happens, and he's a dog. So how, that could have been a really big turning point, right? Like for him, like how he showed up the next game at practice, whatever the case may be. And you're actually watching for him to maybe not be able to bounce back. Did he bounce back instantly, or what was that like there the next little bit?
Game 4 was the Islanders at home. Okay. So at this point, Islanders are very, they're thought of a shoo-in as a playoff team. They're experienced, they're big, they're heavy. By the third period of that game, I'm matching him up against Barzal, if that tells you how well he's played. So again, remember what I was telling you earlier in this, like these opportunities to coach him and see how they're going to react and not manufacture it. He deserved to not play. I want to communicate with him, get his thoughts, tell him my thoughts, and go, that's not going to be good enough. You're going to have to just, here. And by the third period of that game, I've got him matched up again. I had to flip matchups because Barzal was torching us on another matchup. and I got an 18-year-old kid going against him. He was unbelievable that game. So right there, I'm like, wow, he answered the bell against, and we're not talking, a bottom 5 team here. I know they finished lower than they like, but at that point in the season, they're a team they're a playoff bound team, and they've made some noise and experience heavy team. And he just went toe to toe with one of the better centermen in the league, and I had to shift him into that because he was out playing our other guys. So yeah, he responded the right way. Let's put it that way.
That's awesome. But good on you. Like, was there any discussion? Because I know that I've seen it, and I've even been a part of it, where you have a stinker, and then like you're not in the lineup, or you're not even given any opportunity the next game to really bounce back. Let's say like you're destined for 2 minutes and a few shifts, 1 shift a period. Like, what was your internal thought process with him that next game? Did you want to give him a little leash again, or what?
To me, the player dictates. It's not. I don't have any agenda. There's no agenda. My job is to help this team win, period. That's my job. This is the NHL. It's not the American League. It's not a feeder to the NHL. This is our job, is to try and win. So and that's why I'm very transparent with the players. I have one goal, is to help this group win a hockey game. So if I don't see some of the things are intangibles, some guys have more rope. I'm not silly. Like, the Jake Voraceks of the world and the Patrick Laine's, they bring other things that other guys can't. So their rope's a little bit different than other guys, but I don't go with any agenda with the player. What I'm seeing is what I'm going to coach that game. They might be low in energy. They might have the flu. I don't know. And I'm going, you're awful tonight. And they get mad, and I go, well, would you play you? I come sit in my chair. Let's watch the video. And the video doesn't lie. You watch. The biggest thing that hurt players is the overhead. I mean, I can see 200 feet of the ice. I can see where you're at. I can see your changes. I can see your tracking. I can see you're not giving it tonight. So it's not personal. But if you're not going to do this is, so I explained to him, this is what I see. So, and I might tell him on the bench, hey, we got to pick it up here. Start giving me more. And no player's going to say I'm sick or I'm not playing. It's usually after the fact that, yeah, I didn't feel good, or I had a bad sleep the night before, or whatever. But I'm coaching the game. And that's all it is. There's no agenda to that. So as far as Cole, I was so intrigued to see how he's going to respond, to be honest with you. Because that was kind of our first, little bit of you weren't playing well. I don't know how he's going to handle it. I have no idea. And he handled it like a champ, just like a pro. And instead of getting bitter, his self-assessment was great. I didn't even have to show him video. He knew. And again, he's genuine. He's not telling you because you want to hear it. There's a big difference. I think my BS radar is pretty good in those situations. And, but then you still got to put the action together, right? You go, yeah, you know what, I wasn't good. Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, let's see what you do about it. And so no agenda. I have a responsibility to the team to try and win.
How about next season? That was one thing when I was looking at your squad and how young it is. And now you got Kent Johnson, who played 9 games, who's supposed to be a center too. And you're going to have potentially 2 19-year-old centers in the NHL. Like, that to me seems like that almost can't happen. But there is a potential that maybe it will, or maybe somebody has to move or something. But how do you see that? And I know there's no crystal ball, but I mean, you have this 5th overall pick from the same draft year, and you have another kid like you just talked about, and obviously are like a lot that's already played a full season for you. How does that look next year?
Well, we'll see. Like I said, the player dictates, and you got to understand, Kent Johnson hasn't played center in 2 years either. He's in Michigan, and he was playing, with the high pick there from the Kraken for most of it on the wing, and then they had they were pretty loaded. So he hasn't played center in 2 years. I'm certainly not going to throw him to the wolves and try and put him in a position to fail, because I don't think that helps him. I don't see that being very productive for him. And so we're going to take our time. And some guys, the maturation of a player, there's no straight path to it. There's no straight trajectory, and there's no blueprint for it. Like Cole Sillinger's path and his path might be completely different. And I have Chinnikov, who's another first-round pick who's got an incredible amount of skill set. But they all, how they deal with pressure, how they deal with understand that these guys come to the NHL as an 18 or 19-year-old. They're paying bills for the first time. They may be living on their own the first time. They may be having to get their license out of state and set up their phones. And how am I going to eat? They don't know how to cook. like, it's not just I go put on the uniform and play. Like, they have to live. This is the human element to it. So we're trying to help them on all these aspects. So Chinnikov's coming from Russia, barely speaks the language. He's adjusting from a big ice game to a small ice game that he's never had to do. The game gets on you faster. He's an explosive player, but all of a sudden you run out of room real quick, and you're playing against the best players in the world, and the goalies are a little better now. And so it's a big change, and the style of play is different, right? So his progression and what that's going to look like might take 1 year, might take 3, might be 18 months. I don't know. But the player dictates that. Now, Cole only played 42 games the year before. So what's an 82 game schedule? You almost doubled his games. So how does your body hold up? How does your mental focus hold up? And especially if you're putting him in a top 2 center role. So Kent Johnson, same thing. You just come off a 40 game schedule in Michigan as a winger. To put him at center right away in a top 6 role, playing 18 to 20 minutes a night against the best in the world. You got to remember, we go into Tampa, it's Braden Point and Stamkos, and then we go into Pittsburgh, it's Sidney Crosby and Malkin, and then we go to Washington, and it's Kuznetsov and Backstrom, and then we go, like, these guys are seasoned pros, big, strong winners, and you're going, okay, kid, good luck. I mean, that's the difference between the NHL now. You're developing and growing. It's because of the salary cap system and the value of these entry level deals and how you fit them in. And so you've got to be really careful giving them too much too soon. And, a small stretch of 5 or 7 games is not a big enough sample size to go, yeah, you're ready and you've arrived. It's, we got to help them through this. And there's going to be more downs and ups mostly. And they've never been through that. These guys were the best in college. They were the best in junior. They're scoring, 1.5 a game and had success their whole life. So the first time they're going to hear no. The first time they're going to hear, yeah, you're playing less. And it's like harder to play less. Yeah, it is. It's really hard to play less. But that's where you're at. And these guys have earned it, and they're playing better than you. So, and that's where I always want to be transparent. If these guys are deserving to play, they're going to play. There's been many guys on our roster this year that played more minutes than they should have because they earned it. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you didn't say anything. You're gonna have to wait till camp and see what goes on. I know you had a chance to see Kent a little bit there at the end of the season where he came up. But then there's that individuality, right? That I know that you're going to be managing just by how eloquent you are about it. Because I mean, he's 5th overall. Cole was whatever he was overall, 15th. And the way his head probably, you have to know what makes him tick and what he thinks maybe he's entitled to or not. And that's definitely the wrong word, because I know nobody's entitled to anything. But you know what I'm getting at, right? Like, he's going to see himself in this picture, and yeah, maybe he makes a team and he's a massive asset to you guys. But there's the human element again that comes into play, right? There's definitely things that you need to manage, and it's a good problem to have though as a coach. I mean, obviously you have these great young players that are coming in, and hopefully they all fit the bill and go up to their potential. I gotta ask you 2 more questions before we sign off. One is Patrick Laine. I can't believe I haven't talked about him till that. I know you've mentioned him a few times, and he's one of those kind of 1-2 percenters. I mean, 36 goals as a rookie at 18, right? 44 goals at 19. Yep. I looked at him just a little bit there before we got on, and like, he's 24 years old. Like,
he's young.
I mean, he's not old. I mean, but he's been around for so long, and he had this 44 goal season. What is that? 5 years ago now, which seems like a lifetime ago in the sport, for as far as NHL is concerned. So I know him and Torts. I mean, there was stuff in the media about that. Now you've taken on obviously that role. It seemed like there was growth in Patrick's game. Now I don't watch him on a day-to-day basis like you do, but he seemed a little bit enigmatic. Like from how he's presented in the media, how he presents himself as a person, and I would think the individual inside Patrick Laine would be really good to understand in order to help him get the best out of himself. Has that been one of the focus areas for you this year?
Yeah, there's no question with Patrick is understanding him better. And he's a very driven player. He has his toughest critic is himself. He is, and it may not come across that way. And he has body language issues on the ice and different things. But when you get to understand who Patty is, and he puts a lot of pressure on himself to drive the offensive engine and be that guy, the go-to guy. So, man, there's a lot of layers to Patrick. He's He's obviously his shots. It's elite. It's like in another level. It's a 1%er for sure. Patty loves hockey. He eats, breathes. He watches games. He's always trying to get better. He watch every playoff game, all this stuff. If you ask Patty, what'd you do? I was watching first period of this game and 2 periods of that game, and it's crazy to me. But like most goal scorers, it comes down to confidence, right? And when he went on a stretch where he scored 19 goals in 22 games for us this year, and so he came in. He had an incredible camp. He was in great shape. I challenged him. I told right when I got the job, I called him. He's one of my first calls and saying, "Look, like camp is going to be hard. You better be ready." And he was. He came in great shape, great camp, got rolling. Then he got hurt, so he missed his 2 months. Okay, with an injury, and within that 2 months, he lost his dad. Right, his dad passed away. So it's hard enough to miss 2 months and not play. And he skated, I think, 5 times in that 2 months. And then add the fact that the human element, he lost his father, a guy that he talked to pretty much every day, watched every one of his games. And so he didn't get off, his start was good. He didn't score. I think he had 2 or 3 overtime goals, but he wasn't. If you looked at the analytics side of it, I mean, he was dangerous. He was not scoring, but he should have scored more. Then he comes back and he starts okay, and I noticed some things that he was doing from the last year's body language, and we talked about before the year. If I see it, we're going to talk about it right away, and so we did. We had a great, honest conversation about it, what it's going to look like. But I said, I'm going to help you, and we're going to work through this. We're not going down that path last year because it doesn't work. You said it, and I said it. So this is where the rubber meets the road, right? So you're either going to go left or right here. But I'm going to help you through it. And so we did. We worked through some things. I won't get into all the details of it, but we worked through some things, and to every sense of the word, we worked through it. And because I know when we put the work in, and his details get there, and his practice habits get cranked up, and his gym habits, the skill's going to take over. He's just too good a player. And so he turned that corner, and then he got the confidence, and then you just let him go. Because then once you got a confident guy like that, when it's on his stick, he feels like he can score every shot. You see it in practice, you see it. But the thing was, don't let the habit slip, right? Like, so he went on a stretch, 19 for 22. Like that's a stretch I haven't seen on a lot of players at all. And I played with some really good ones. Like that's pretty much a goal a game for a quarter of the season. That's nuts. But he relied on the foundation. And it was work-based. And so that's what got the ball rolling for him. And he was tracking pucks, and he's being more physical, and he's putting the effort in the gym. And so he was becoming a better teammate too. Like he's integrating with teammates more. So that's kind of the Coles Notes version of the inside on Patrick. And he is and I keep telling this to people, he's young. Like one of the worst things that can happen for some guys is success too early. And you got to remember, in Winnipeg, he wasn't the guy. You had Wheeler and Scheifele and these guys that he could kind of not hide behind, but you could protect him, And so you get a 38 and a 44 goal season, and but you don't have to take the hard matchups or as much, right? Because now you're playing against second pairing demon instead of first pairing demon, and yes, you're on the first unit power play, but you can protect him a little bit of on your matchups as a head coach. When he comes to us, there's no protecting. It's like you're the guy, you're playing, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. So that's an adjustment for him. You want that responsibility, but until you handle it and go through it, you don't know what that looks like or feels like. You think you can do it, but you have to go through it. And so for us and our staff is trying to navigate and help them through that, and what that's going to look like, and what that feels like, and what that responsibility is going to be, and the work required to do that.
Right.
So he did it. I mean, credit to Patty. He put the work in. He's a driven player. He gets a bad rap. People call him lazy. He's not lazy. He's not lazy at all. When you watch how he tracks pucks and skates, and when he's not on his game, he's just his own worst enemy. That's what it is. It's not a lack of effort. Body language makes it look like it's lack of effort, but that's him being hard on himself, and that's me understanding him where he's at, and I can see it. when the games are going, and we got to try and reel that. And it's not easy. It's not like you have two senses that can fix that, but we try to identify it here earlier now, and say, look, like, this isn't working. Like, you gotta, this is where we got to get to. This is what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? So.
One more break here in this hour and 40-minute interview with Brad Larsen, just to say that I do appreciate all of the feedback, whether it be good, and 99% of it is good, and the ways to improve. I love constructive criticism too. If you feel either I should branch out with my guests, or if you want to see a guest on here, if you like a different line of questioning or like some different topics covered, by all means, please let me know. I'm always trying to improve. And I also want to say I appreciate the support on the channel that you listen to. If you can promote the podcast, if you can promote Up My Hockey, or if you can review the podcast, that's always super helpful. I know that I haven't been as consistent with releasing the podcast, as I've been tied up in the business aspect of Up My Hockey and serving my clients. So it hasn't been a weekly podcast, but I do appreciate all of you who do. When I do download a podcast, are right there to get it, to listen, and to share it with others. So thanks so much for being loyal to the show. Please do share, whether it be on YouTube, tell a friend, or whether it be on iTunes, or wherever it is that you listen. By all means, please do share it. The more eyes on it, the more we can help, and the more we can get the word out about the intangibles of hockey that really can make a difference for your player, or for yourself going forward. So thanks again for listening. Let's get back to the podcast with Brad Larsen.
But I'll go back to when we started at this beginning of this talk about building trust, right? Like, I think we've built a pretty good relationship on, I care about him. I do. I care about him, and I love the kid. I do. I think he's been through some heartbreaking things, and so, and I want to build trust with him the right way. I want to push him, because I think there's a level that he can get to that's scary. And so, when we go through these things together, and as a staff and as a team, and his teammates are involved in this too, I think there's an opportunity to grow together. And so I think he's enjoying the game. I think he's willing to push himself outside his limits a little bit. I think there's still so many more levels that he can get to. I think that's the scary thing. If he played all 82 games this year, I think he was on a 38 to 40 goal pace. So he was right there where he needs to be as far as production wise. Mm-hmm. But he grew his game this year. That's what I liked, is that there was growth in his overall game. And it's great if you can score, but there's guys in the league, that can score, but I wouldn't want on my team. I can tell you right now, where Pat is trending to is a guy that can score, but add more elements to his game. That's going to be really important for that playoff run that I'm talking about. Yeah. But he's going to have to grow into that too. We had a conversation, I can tell you, recently, and just texting him going, watch how hard the Stars are getting played. Watch how hard it is to fight for yours. Watch how hard. I said, because we're going to be in that position one day, and you're going to be the guy. So you can't get frustrated. You're not allowed to get frustrated. You can't show frustration to the other team. So just trying to plant those seeds now before we get there, not when we get there, before. Let's watch it closely. Watch what Stamkos is doing. Watch what the Kucherovs are doing. These are the guys that have done it a couple of times, and how are they handling it when they're getting cross-checked? And yes, you got to be competitive, but there's that line. You can't let them show, or you can't show them you're frustrated, So just little things like that, and trying to coach them now for when we get there, that we're ready and prepared for it.
That's awesome. One of the great quotes I thought all year was from one of his interviews, and I think it was when he was rolling and he was hot, because that was when kind of the spotlight of the league started to go on Columbus a little bit, right? Because the league loves watching what Patrick's doing, and he got an assist on a shot that that went off the goalie's pad, and somebody scored, and the reporter asked him, "I'm sure you're familiar with it." He said, "I never shoot for rebounds."
You shoot for rebounds. I never shoot for rebounds, and that's perfect answer, because I told him, when you shoot to score.
I thought that was great. One thing I'll ask, and this is just from me watching as a fan. I've always, you mentioned his shot already, and I think it's probably impossible not to notice his shot. And is one of the top probably 5 in the league, maybe even top 3 in the league. I would probably put him in there. But does he need a guy to distribute the puck for him, or is that part of his evolution? Like, can he be a puck distributor himself and kind of like be the engine on a line, or does he need to find his space, get open, and have somebody that's going to find him? Like, can he become more dimensional, or am I kind of putting him in a hole already by saying that he's just a shooter?
I think he's an extremely underrated passer. I think he's an incredible passer. But the problem is I don't want him passing. Sometimes he's forcing passes that he can make, but I don't want him to because his shot's too deadly. That's the tricky thing with him is that there's some guys that are just pure shooters that are not distributors. And the thing with him is he can do both. So to the original part of that question, I'd say, yeah, he needs a guy who can get him the puck. I think all scorers need that. I think because what the goal scorers have a knack to find the spot. And you get him in the spot, it's over. It's that Stamkos thing. You get it in his wheelhouse, it's in the net, or it's a grade A every time. And so there's certain guys in the league that are just lethal. And he does it differently than, say, an Austin Matthews does it, or some of these great goal scorers for sure, or Stammer. But he's a tricky one because he can do both. He really can. And it's trying to find that combination. Like Jake played a lot with him, Voracek, because he's a pure passer. He'd rather pass 9 out of 10 times every time. And but the thing about having him with Jake is Jake's always looking for him, always. And I think it's a great combination now. But Jake's a winger, and Boone's not really a driver of the puck. He's more of I'm going to get to the blue. I'm going to get it out of the corners, and I'm going to the net, right? So he brings an element, which is good because it opens up ice for those guys, and he gets all the stuff around the net or brings chaos to the net for those shooters. So with Patty, it's I think I'm always coaching him to shoot it because on 2-on-1, I hate it when he passes the puck because I think every time he doesn't shoot, we let the goalie off the hook. But I also know he can make those plays, and he wants to make those plays. Right. So that's going to be part of his growth and maturation too. Is just the timing of it. I think, like any goal scorer, when you're struggling to score, now you pass too much, you don't shoot enough. Where that's when you'd be shooting just volume. You know what I mean? Because the odds are in your favor; they're going to start going in. So, there's still a lot of growth there, and I'm really excited to see where it gets to with him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we'll sign off maybe with Boone. You've talked about him a lot. You talked about having to make the decision as a head coach, and many guys don't, right? That you now have to assign a captain. Like you need to do that. I know. I mean, even from your history, right? You were a captain in a lot of places. The leadership has always been something that has been around your name, which was obviously wouldn't have been a small task for you, right? Who is going to be the leader of this team, and what is that going to look like? Because I do think that brand, says something about the coach behind the bench too. So like, what was there in Boone that you saw, and what for you makes a great leader?
Well, on the surface, like he was an easy decision in a lot of ways because he's max effort. He's incredible teammate, incredibly coachable. He's a guy that truly blooms where he's planted, whether he's in the third line, fourth line, first line, never complains, always working hard in the gym, does everything right as far as that way. An incredible human being, first and foremost. When you get to know Boone and to the heart of it, it's very selfless. It's always about the team. But there was more into it than just that. And I probably won't get too much deeper into that, just because it was very personal between me and him, and some very deep discussions about it. But as from the outside, it's a very easy decision, but there's more layers to it. But at the end of the day, when I got input, I have to make the final decision. But I also was listening to my coaches, and I listened to Yarmo, and we talked a lot about it, and he was the obvious choice. He's so well respected in our room. He's a Blue Jacket through and through. Like it's where he wants to be. So naming him captain, it was the right choice. Let's put it that way. Because I debated not having a captain at all, and because I don't think you force that if it's not there. But when I went through the checklist of things, and a captain truly has to be selfless. He wears a lot of hats. especially at the NHL level, it's a tremendous honor. One of the discussions we had was, don't try and do too much now. I think you're a captain because of all the things you brought and who you are. And so don't change. I don't need you to do more. Just be you, who you are. There's no more added pressure. I think he had all the respect of his teammates. They were thrilled for him. You could tell when we named him, and you watch, and I watched that closely when you look around the room when we named him, guys were thrilled about it, right? So you made the right choice. But he leads it the right way. Everything he does, he leads every drill in practice. He's competitive in practice. He doesn't know how to not work. It just does. It's not in his DNA. Everything's work based. So he had one of his best years. He scored 23 goals, I believe, and he got hurt at the end. And that was he played through a back injury for probably 3 or 4 weeks. Nobody knew about it. Never complained. Didn't say a word about it. Finally, I think it was Boston. We won at home or whatever it was. And he came to me and he was in tears. He's like, "Coach, I can't go anymore. I can't do it." Like he's like, I'm in so much pain. And he's like, but because that's how much he cares. It's not, he wants to be there. He wants to play. And he went right to the bitter end. Like he got to the point where he's basically immobile. He couldn't move anymore, So it was the right choice. There's no question. And he's a special individual as far as what he brings to his team, his teammates, the respect that he brings, and how hard he approaches the game. And he can wear a lot of hats for our group, and he can do it in a lot of different roles, which is pretty special.
Sounds like he'd check the box of being somebody that'll be there standing at the end of 28 games, as you talked about earlier.
I have no doubt he would. He's going to leave it out there. That's
awesome. Last one. You said been around the game, but I think you said 27 years. In the coaching side of it for 12. There had to have been some surprise. It's your first time behind the bench. What was the biggest either personal growth for you as an individual, as a coach? I know you're always looking for ways to get better, or what was there something that was different about being the head guy that you didn't necessarily see coming?
You're not the first to ask me. I've had several people, what was the biggest surprise? And I say this with the deepest humility and not out of arrogance, is that there really wasn't any surprises. There wasn't. It's been 25 years, not 27 yet. I haven't got to that landmark yet. But it was, here's where I benefited a lot. I've been around player and coach now for a long time, but being with Torts really helped me because he prepared me very well for this opportunity, with sharing a lot of the meetings and decisions that go into things and bringing me in on a lot of decisions and conversations maybe management had and getting my thoughts and perspective. And 2 years in a row I did camp myself. It was like, he's like, "I want you to plan camp, you do it, organize it." That's the trust that we built. It didn't happen. It happened organically. He didn't know me when he got the job. I didn't know him other than who he was as a coach. So, but we built trust over time. And so every year I coached the D. I ran power play, penalty kill. I coached with the forwards. I ran a lot of practices. He'd come in, say, "I want this, give me 40 minutes, make sure this is in," and he'd be gone. So he grew me and mentored me a lot. So I'm trying to think if there was any major surprises. I wouldn't. The only surprise for me was our start, 12-6. That was not expected. I'm going to tell you right now. Like I was thrilled, but that was a big surprise. And then, then the coaching started. How are we going to work through this? Is when it really started to, because there's some tough moments in there. We got thumped in Florida 9-0 and could have been 12. We got thumped at home. Calgary beat us 6-0. It should have been 12. And Elvis was outstanding, and they had 6 shots on net. And you're going, "Oh my!" And we got the Rangers the next night, who are arrested and waiting for us in our building. And I'm like, "Oh my Lord!" And so me and the coaches were at the rink till 1 a.m. just because we have to help them. We can't. I can yell at them, but it only goes so far. So how are we going to help them to play a team? And the next night we play an outstanding game. We gather ourselves after going through this whole process in the morning, and we win 5-3 at home against the Rangers. And like those are the moments you live for as coaches. They're not fun to go through. They're not. They actually they're. But I've learned to find joy and there's peace in those moments, because that's when the growth will happen.
Yeah.
The winning is easy. The winning, and I say that in tongue in cheek. It's not easy to win. I'm saying the winning is easy as far as everybody's happy, everybody's having fun, and the growth starts when it gets hard, and how you work through that together. That's when character is revealed. That's when you start seeing the warts in some of these guys, and not that they're bad people. They're human, just like me as a coach. I make mistakes. Many times I walk in the room and say, guys, I messed that up. My bad. You know what I mean? And that's what accountability is. It's accepting responsibility for your actions. So those growth moments and going through that, and there was many. That's the joy of the coaching. It is, and it's you hope to get to the point where you're winning a whole lot more than you're losing. But even in those winning teams, it's a struggle too. It's hard, and there's always, Todd McClellan put it to me a long time ago. He said there's going to be 5 guys that love you, 5 guys that hate you, and everybody in between. It's just, that's reality. You can't make everybody. There's only 18 and 2 every night. If there's 23 skaters, that means there's some guys that aren't happy, right? So there's a lot of balls to juggle, and one of your biggest responsibilities as a head coach is managing people. It's not the X's and O's. We deal with that all the time. Everybody's got the information. It's really managing people and doing that. And is that a surprise? It's not really a surprise. I expected that going in.
Yeah. Well, love, care, trust, like you said, to use your words, right? I mean, that's what gets you through all that stuff. And when your foundation, if that's part of your presentation at the start of the year, I mean, that really changes your whole outlook on the season, because that's where those moments, like, that's what builds those moments. You know what I mean? Like love, care, trust. I mean, during the hard times is when you're building that. So, fantastic job. I'll get you off here with the prediction. I know, well, maybe some people don't know. I mean, you have Jared Bednar and Nolan Pratt, two coaches there, a head coach and assistant coach, have a lineage to you. You guys were together, and now they're in the final. I'm sure you're wishing nothing but the best for them, and maybe you're in contact with them, maybe you're not. But what's your prediction here for the final, or do you have any words of encouragement for your old boys there?
Well, I'm thrilled for them. You know what I mean? When I got the head job, I was on the search for another assistant. I was part of the hiring process with Nolan the year before, and he was on part of our staff. And then when I got the head job, I ended up hiring Jared Bednar, as he had just been let go from Peoria. So worked with them for a couple of years, and tremendous coaches, so good. We had a great time. We had a great staff, got along really well. So, look, they don't need my advice. They're smart enough. Look, they're in the Stanley Cup final for a reason, but I'm certainly encouraged. I'm excited for them. I'm rooting for them. I am. I won't hide that. I have a very good connection with both those guys, and they're good friends of mine. We keep in contact all the time. So my prediction I think Colorado in 7. That's where I'm at. I think there's question marks. I mean, is Kadri going to make it back? Doesn't look like it. If Point comes back, does that tip it in the favor of Tampa? Obviously, goaltending is the one thing for Colorado that's the question mark, right? I don't know if it's going to be Kemper or Frank Cruz. And 88, the one thing I'll say with Colorado, you can't get frustrated, because 88 can frustrate a lot of teams. He's that good. He can change games, and he keeps his team in it all the time. So, managing your frustration level, sticking to the plan, and don't overpass it, keep shooting pucks. Those are the things that you gotta, I think they're averaging 4+ goals a game right now in playoffs. I don't see that happening against Tampa. There might be a game they get 5 or 6, but to average 4 through that. So they're going to have to be able to play in tighter games. I think they're going to have to win 3-2, 2-1. Does their goaltending hold up to that? I don't know. Can they defend hard enough? But I'll tell you what, I'm excited. If I could have handpicked 2 teams, I'm telling you, because of the star power, just the storyline. Colorado's been building. They got a lethal power play. I think they're 30+% on their power play right now. Penalty kill is kind of struggling, and then Tampa's a really heavy defending team, but you got stars on both sides. It's the skill level, the D that's going to be driving Colorado. It's going to be an awesome series. I hope it goes 7. I just really am hoping for that. Just as a fan, and I'm watching this purely as a fan. I'm not watching it as a coach. I'm just going to watch it and get a bowl of popcorn and enjoy it, because I think there's going to be some unbelievable games. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's, and no disrespect to Dallas Stars and no disrespect to the Montreal Canadiens, but, the last couple of years kind of haven't really been, the finals, and like this is the finals. Like these are arguably the two best teams. I mean, got to the end,
If you said going into the season, who are the two teams at the end, they would have said. Now going through the season, you might have said, well, no, Florida might beat Tampa. They might take that step. There's some pretty good teams on the west side also. I think the East was much deeper. That's just my personal opinion. I think there was more juggernauts in the East this year, and that swings from season to season. But it was lethal in the East this year, and that's not taking anything away from the West. There were some really good teams. I just think it was deeper this year, and so I think Colorado went through a lot this year. That's what people don't understand. They had a lot of injuries. They had a lot of stuff going on that people don't talk about. It wasn't like smooth sailing and they just rolled through the year. Like this is where I think Jared Bednar and their staff did an incredible job of the standard, and they've done a good job with their foundation, because they continued to win when they had a lot of their lineup, and it was a lot. It wasn't like one or two guys. It was a lot of key guys. I read an article the other day, and I'm going to say this on the air, and I know this isn't like national or anything, but they're talking about like who's the next John Cooper. I'm like, the next John Cooper's been in Colorado for the last few years. I think he's done an incredible job, and with managing the talent he has, the expectations, and every year they're just getting better and better and better, and now they're in the finals. Can they get it done? We're going to see, but it's they went through a lot this year, way more than people even talk about. And I don't think they get enough credit for that they were second in overall in the league in record wise. And you look at the man games lost, and not just that, but the guys that they lost for extended periods of time. That's the thing, so I think they're prepared for this. I do. I think there's going to be some tense moments, because pressure does funny things to players and teams. And they're going to make some mistakes. They will, and they're going to need some saves. But they're not perfect either. You know what I mean? So Tampa hasn't faced a team like Colorado, and I think it's going to be real intriguing. I just hope it goes 7. That's what my biggest hope. I just want to see game 7.
I love it. I got just because my affiliation and relationship with Jared and Nolan as well, like I'm rooting for them. And people sometimes forget that in Jared's first year there was like the worst year in the franchise, right? Like they were like last year, so like he's been part of
ever since I think it was the worst record in the NHL ever since I think the shootout was implemented,
right,
like by a landslide. So I think they had like 52 points, and I'm like, Lord, this poor guy. But then the next year he's up for Coach of the Year.
Right.
That's what people forget. And you got to remember, he got the job 3 weeks before the season started, and there was a lot going on. And like people don't talk about that, right? They just think, well, they forget. So he jumped into a real tough situation. No time to prepare. Build your staff. You got 3 weeks to move your family, get there, get prepared, know your team. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. And then this year too, like to your point, like I didn't hear his name in many discussions around that award. I mean, it's just the award, Coach of the Year, but it's fun to debate and talk about, right? And it's like, I think people just dismiss, he has the star power. You can't just throw good players on the ice and have it work out. Like you talk to your part, like the human element of like managing those egos and managing the distribution and the ice time and having them believe in a foundation that's going to, be successful in the long run, like all that. With his man games lost, I thought that they did a fantastic job there again. I mean, I thought that he should have been up for that award. I thought for sure he kind of, I don't know if he is. I mean, obviously you're speaking very respectfully of him, and nobody speaks disrespectfully. But I think the mainstream media doesn't give him the credit that he deserves for the job he's doing there.
Yeah, I think they just assume they have players and they're supposed to be good. But like you win a Stanley Cup, all of a sudden you put yourself in a very elite status, and to get your name on the cup as a head coach. So, we'll see if he gets it done. I think they got the team that can do it. If they can stay healthy and they get the goaltending, I think they got a shot at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the goaltending is going to be the big one. I think for me is can they stand up? I think everyone knows what you're going to get. Like you said with 88 there, he's done it, and he's like so crazy good. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a great playoffs, and I love seeing the physicality ramp up. I know we've talked about that before. Like, this is the best time of year. Like, this is hockey to me. Like, the new age hockey in the regular season, I still have a hard time watching some of it sometimes, but like this playoffs is like legit. You know, it's fast and skilled and physical, and you have to fight for space and like all those things you said earlier. And as a fan, I love watching it now. So anyways, Lars, you've been an amazing guest as usual. Really, thanks for being so transparent and honest and open. And I think that's obviously the transparency here is obviously the transparency your guys are getting. And I think the authenticity just completely shines through, and I'm sure you're going to do great things there in the coming years. So thanks for sharing your time today.
You bet. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for spending time with us today. That was quite the conversation to have somebody like Brad, who's obviously a peer of mine and somebody that I've known from when we were kids, I could say. It's not lost to me that he is the head coach of an NHL team. There's 32 of them in the world. 32 head coaches that have taken hockey as the route they want to go in life, that have risen to the top of the totem pole. And to have somebody like that, to have their ear, to have them share as transparently and as eloquently as Brad did for an hour and 40 or an hour and 50 minutes, super grateful and super humbled that we were able to have his time. So I hope that you appreciate his time as much as I do. Any type of insight, and I mean this honestly, these are high performers. Like, the people that you are getting access to here are doing things that a lot of people want to do but are unable to do. So now, why is that? Why are they able to do it? Like, anytime you get an insight into that, anytime you can listen or read about somebody, for me, I'm able to ask the questions. Like, there's so much knowledge out there. There's so many different perspectives and opinions, and not everything is going to land on you like it does on me. Even as Brad said, as much as he respected Tortorella, who's won Stanley Cups and is respected in the industry, he's not John Tortorella. So he can't try to be John Tortorella. He has to be you. Just like you, listener, has to be you, and I have to be me. But there is pieces that are going to resonate with you from what Brad was saying, that you might be able to add to your repertoire as a parent or as a coach or as a player, that will enhance you and enhance your offering, enhance what you provide, whether it be in your workforce or at school or on your hockey team. So always be looking for ways to get better. And when you can have the ear of somebody like Brad in the 1 out of 32 category in the world, I think that would be an awesome time to just sit down and listen and soak it up and hear what he has to say with really curious ears, right? Really curious ears, because there's going to be something there that is going to be beneficial for you and for your game and for your life. So, Brad, thanks again for hanging in there. Everyone, thanks for listening to the end, who's still listening now. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate your viewership. And on whatever platform you're listening to this, play hard and keep your head up. Till next time, I'm Jason Podolin.
Just